Hi, this is your host, Kristen Howe. I'm so excited to welcome you to our call with today's guest, Derrick Rydall. After a life-changing near-death experience, Derrick seriously considered becoming a monk, then a minister. He then cloistered himself in his apartment without TV or news and meditated for several years. The world's #1 expert on the Law of Emergence, as well as a licensed integrative therapist for 17 years, best-selling author, prominent life coach, and consultant to Emmy and Oscar winners, Derrick has touched the lives of tens of thousands of people around the world. And on the call today with him, you will discover the real cause of your stress, emotional pain, financial lack, and most relationship issues. And I'll tell you right now, it's not what you think. You'll learn why the law of attraction and most manifestation techniques actually make things worse. It's the missing link, so you're going to want to pay attention to that. You'll uncover the #1 thing that is sabotaging your results, and that way you will never be stuck or victimized again. We'll discover why there's actually nothing wrong with you, and you can end the struggle of self-improvement forever. You'll get more clarity about who you are and why you're alive more than ever before, and you'll receive a quantum healing that will instantly lift you to a new level. So if you're sick of working a job that smothers your spirit, or you're struggling to know what you're really meant to do, you're plagued by doubt that you have what it takes, or you're afraid of how others will judge you if you go for it, literally, everybody lean forward, pay attention. This call will change your life. So Derrick, I can't wait. I'm so excited to share you with everyone. Thanks for joining us today, and welcome to the call.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here. It's a real honor to be here.
What I'd love to have you do, Derrick, because your story is just, it's amazing. And I would love to have you share 2 to 3 minutes, just to give us an idea of what some of the major turning points were in your life that brought you here to manifesting the current level of success that you have.
Absolutely. And I don't know if I've shared this with you before, but, really, I'd always been on a journey, always felt this impulse for truth and something greater and greater possibilities, really all my life. And I was, striving and struggling for so many years to try to fix myself and improve myself and, find outer validation and heal my childhood. And in this journey to be something more, something bigger and better that I felt within me. And ultimately that drive to improve myself and make something of myself and heal my past drove me to being addicted to drugs and alcohol and breaking up with my fiance, the love of my life, ended up being broke, alone, in a 1-bedroom apartment, eating Kraft macaroni and cheese, and suicidal. And then ultimately ended up in the emergency room almost overdosing. And I remember, that sounds like that should be rock bottom. And I remember lying in the bed in the emergency room with these, IV attached to me and having to wait for my mom. I was an adult and my mom had to come get me. And it was almost like I couldn't believe that everything I had done had gotten me to this place. I remember looking at the beeping monitors and going, something's wrong with this picture. And the universe, they say it whispers in your ear and then it taps you gently on the shoulder and then maybe it knocks you upside the head and then takes a 2x4. And that was really a 2x4. But supposedly, according to that analogy, the 2x4 was the last piece usually. And then you get it, right? But I didn't get it. You would think I would have gotten it there, almost dying, being in that emergency room and all that. And I remember definitely thinking something was wrong with this picture. But then I went off and I continued along the same path and ultimately ended up doing a movie in Jamaica, and where I ended up getting caught in a reef, a story that many people do know about me. And I got caught underwater in a reef for a couple hours, and I was surrounded by fire coral and spiked coral and sand sharks and couldn't swim. I had to paddle with my fingers to stay afloat so that I wouldn't be skewered by these giant spikes that looked like something out of an underwater tomb out of Indiana Jones. And I was underwater in this little pocket, this little tomb, like I said, like from Indiana Jones. And my mind was going through scenario after scenario of how I would be saved. And eventually I ran out of scenarios of how I'd be saved. And so I was imagining all the ways that I would become famous after I died, because I was an actor. And so even my ego, even in the throes of the last gasp of my life, my ego was still trying to find its 15 minutes of fame. And eventually my mind got to the end of the tape. And it was the first time ever in my life I'd been in that place where it was not like I was afraid I was going to die. It wasn't that I thought I might die. It was that I knew that I was going to. I knew that I was going to drown. There was nothing left. My mind reached the end of the reel. The reel I've been going around in circles all my life, playing the same tapes over and over. It was like it literally reached the end. Like those old reel-to-reels where it's like the tape comes off the other reel and just goes like, circling around. And there was nothing left. In that moment, all that was left for me was surrender. And it wasn't a surrender like, God, if you can get me out of this mess, I'll go to church on Sunday. I'd already tried that one. It was true, unconditional letting go. And in that moment of complete surrender, this wave came along, or the water came along. I don't know how it happened, but it literally lifted me out of the pocket and placed me onto this one spot outside of the water on this coral place, the only spot that didn't have fire coral, where I could finally stand up and look down into the pocket I had been caught in and the maze that I had been swimming through, this labyrinth of coral reef. And it was like suddenly I could see that maze was an analogy, a metaphor for my whole life, that I had been swimming through this maze following all these brightly colored objects. And, this program, this technique, this person, this get-rich-quick thing, whatever it was, until I finally had gotten trapped in this pocket, this surrounded by all of this danger. And I realized that the exit was just inches behind me the whole time. And in that moment of complete unconditional surrender, something snapped inside of me. My ego, something just cracked. It was like Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall. And the guy that swam out of that labyrinth, that maze, was not the same guy that swam into it. And I remember for the next year or so, having all these dreams of death and destruction and all this anxiety like I was dying. And only in retrospect did I realize that it was because my ego was dying. That part of my ego that had broken from its roots was literally dying. That personality construct, that old way of being. And in that gap of complete surrender, something else emerged. And I didn't have the words for it at the time, but it was deep. And it drew me ultimately to try to become a monk. And that didn't work out too well. So I was going to become a minister, and that wasn't right. So I ended up cloistering myself in my apartment, which you talked about in the beginning, and going in this inner journey where I began to become acquainted and reacquainted with the self within me that had never been damaged, never been diminished by any childhood experience or any relationship breakup or financial calamity. None of that had ever tarnished or diminished me. I could see that. And I also could see that this self was already complete. It was already perfect. Nothing I could do could improve upon it. It was whole. It was complete. And it was this perfect idea, this divine design, this perfect pattern. And that all that it needed was for me to become in alignment with it, faithful to it, congruent with it, and it would begin to unfold and emerge naturally into my life without struggle, without striving. And that's really where the Law of Emergence was born, where I realized that there was nothing to attract to me. There was nothing to achieve. There was nothing to make happen. There was just something within me that I needed to make welcome. And it's like, just as the oak tree is in the acorn doesn't attract an oak to it. It doesn't achieve oakhood. It doesn't have to become worthy or deserving of an oak. The oak is already its true nature. And when the conditions are right, the oak emerges. So I could see that, and I realized that directly. And that's where the Law of Emergence was born. And I also realized that this perfect pattern was already established, that I didn't have to make up my dreams. I didn't have to make up my goals. Many workshops and classes, it always seems like we're trying to come up with the best idea and make up some great vision for our life. But I realized that true vision, true purpose is not something you make up. It's something you are made of. The acorn doesn't make up the idea of maybe I'll be a pine tree. No, I think I'll be an oak. it's not something it makes up. It's something that it's made of. It's its nature. It's its essence. And our true destiny, our true goal, our true dreams, the true vision and purpose of our life, it's already been designed, it's already been perfected, and it's already been planted in the soil of our soul. And when we get in touch with it and become congruent with it, it unfolds and emerges in our life like never before. And that's really what my life has become dedicated to.
Wow. I love that. I just think it's so beautiful. It's such a great depiction of, you know, the ups and downs, and even the downs. I mean, there is so much of what brought you to be who you are now and able to share what you're able to share. And I think that's just part of what makes you and your message so rich. So I thank you for sharing that so willingly.
Kristen, just really quickly to speak to that, because we're talking about purpose and stuff today also, I like to say, your greatest message comes from your biggest messes. And that if you even look at the word message, mess plus age equals your message. In other words, the message you've gone through plus time equals the message you're here to deliver. And it's right there in the word, mess, age. And that right inherent in that crisis is the evolutionary catalyst, is your calling. And if you understand that, then you know that everything you've gone through or may be going through, it's not happening to hurt you, cripple you, betray you, reject you, abandon you, or diminish or destroy you. It's all conspiring to activate the true potential within you, to strike that mystic chord of memory within you so you wake up to who and what you really are and develop the skills and the instrumentality to be able to bring that to earth. And it's why also in the Old Testament it says, man may have meant this for evil, but God meant it all for good. And it's all conspiring. You know, when you understand from quantum physics that there's only one something going on, then you realize that everything that's emerging is conspiring to reveal more fulfillment, more wholeness in your life. And then also I talk a lot about in emergence that just as there's certain seeds in nature that require a forest fire to actually come along and burn them and burn down their environment in order to create the clear ground for that seed to grow, to create enough heat for it to crack open, and to burn away some of the upper canopy so that more light can get in. If that fire didn't happen, not only would that seed not grow and reveal its potential, its pattern, but the rest of the forest would eventually cease to thrive. So just like I've learned from all my crises and all my challenges, it's activated this within me. That's what's happening for us individually, and that's what's happening on the planet. And when we know that, we can move out of resistance, because most of what we've been taught is to try to solve our problems, to resist them, to fight them, to work against them, instead of to embrace them and know that our problems are our answered prayer and that these crises are the evolutionary catalysts for our unfoldment. Knowing that everything is conspiring for good and everything is conspiring to reveal that inherent pattern that's already planted within us. Just like the fire that's cracking open the seed to reveal the pattern that's already there. Everything is conspiring for that. So we stop being problem solvers because there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with you, and there's nothing wrong with us. And we move to becoming vision holders. And then there's another mystical truth that gets revealed, that a problem can never be solved anyways, because a problem is just a symptom of a certain level of consciousness, a certain vibrational frequency. It's like ice is always ice at 32 degrees. You can't solve the problem of ice if you are still at 32 degrees. You can have all the positive thinking you want. You can do all the new programs. You can believe in yourself. You can work harder. You can work smarter. But if you stay at the frequency of 32 degrees, you will still have the problem of ice. So the only way to solve the problem of ice is to raise your temperature. And that's akin to raise your frequency. Problems don't get solved. Problems dissolve as you evolve. Just like the ice. And so when you embrace all that's coming at you through the process of emergineering and the emergence program and this model, or the soul purpose concept, and recognize it's really there to lift your frequency, to lift your vibration, to expand you, to crack you open, because there's more of you trying to emerge, and you hold that vision for your life. You get clear on what is that higher vision, that higher idea. You'll lift your frequency, you'll become congruent at a higher vibration, and you won't solve your problems, but those problems will dissolve like the ice because they can't live at that higher temperature. And lo and behold, people will say, your life is changing, problems are being solved, but all that's really happening is the larger you is emerging.
Wow, I love that. Okay,
awesome?
And it's amazing. And you talk about how having a clear vision for our life is the most important thing. And now why do you say that? And you say especially now. So why is this so essential?
Well, it's job number one. And it's not just something you do at a workshop. If you don't know where you're going, every road will take you there. So that's the first problem, right? But the other thing to understand is, like it says in Proverbs, where there is no vision, the people perish. Now, it didn't say where there is no vision, the people have a bad day, right? It didn't say,
right.
where there is no vision, you may not lose that extra, 10 pounds. Or where there is no vision, you may not make 6 figures this year or 7 or whatever the goal is. It said, where there is no vision, the people perish. And the reason is that, like I said, the vision of your life, and we see that in our society. When a society starts to lack vision, it begins to move to decay. It moves into decadence or decadence. And the same thing happens in our life. It begins to stall, then stagnate, then become stuck completely, then it starts to degenerate. And because the vision itself, remember, it's not just a pretty picture. It's the very nature of our being. It's the essence of who and what we really are. It's the oak tree. And if the acorn resisted and persisted in resisting this emerging energy, eventually the acorn would die, because its very life force and the evolution of its being is determined on the next stage of that emergence of that larger idea, the oak tree. And that's also why it says in the Gospel of Thomas, if you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. But if you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. And so this larger energy is being activated in us. Every time you pray, affirm, intend, desire, yearn, and we're doing that all the time, understand that is instantly answered. Every prayer is answered immediately. The very desire itself is the activation of your emerging power. The problem is now that larger you is trying to emerge. That larger energy is trying to emerge. But most of the time, we're still holding on to our old identity. It's the acorn looking out at the field of oak tree and feeling a calling to something bigger, but not quite knowing what it is and yearning for more. And then the oak tree starts to emerge in it, and it feels the pressure. It feels something, its protective shell is starting to crack. And so maybe it tries to hold the shell together, and it tries to stay an acorn and also be an oak tree. It's an impossibility. And that's where we end up with the crisis and the breakdown and all that. And so this energy is trying to emerge in individuals because they've been praying and affirming and desiring more in their life. But they're still holding on to this limited vision of what their life is and who they are and what's possible. And because they're not aware of what the bigger vision is, and they're not bringing their life into integrity with it, which we'll talk about a little bit. So that energy has to go somewhere. It has to do something. So it might get turned in and upon itself, and it becomes a breakdown in our energetic system. And then it rattles around some more and becomes a breakdown in our emotional system. And it causes increased anxiety or depression. Depression is a lack of expression. So the energy is not being expressed, so it gets depressed. So we get depressed. We get anxious. It starts to then move from there. It breaks down our physical body. And then because the energy is not circulating, it breaks down the circulation of energy in our life, which is equivalent to abundance, because the law of circulation, which allows for more abundance to show up in our life, it starts to break down our financial life, et cetera, et cetera. And if we're not really aligned with our soul purpose, how can you be aligned with your soul mate? The relationships equation starts breaking down. And so what I began to discover over working with people for 2 decades is that, we all have these problems, whether it's financial, emotional, physical, relational. And there's all these techniques to solve these individual problems. Sometimes they might work for a while, but in many, many cases, they weren't working continuously or consistently or over the long term. And I began to see that when they did, the difference was that for whatever reason, either because I helped or because something happened, the person opened up to, tapped into, and became more congruent with their higher vision, their deeper purpose. And that energy now was freed up in their life. It wasn't being bottled up or constricted or coming out in disjointed or distorted ways. And suddenly these problems started dissolving because they were evolving. They were emerging. They were unfolding with this higher idea, this higher pattern. And suddenly all the stuff they'd been struggling to solve was going away. It wasn't there anymore. The problems were fixing themselves. And I realized that the greatest leverage on solving our problems is discovering our soul purpose and activating it and becoming aligned with it and living it more and more fully. And then, like I said, we lift our vibration, and at that vibration, those problems can no longer exist, like the ice cannot exist above 32 degrees. And I thought, oh my God, this is what that Proverbs meant. This is why so often, the idea of vision has been so foremost in many of the great teachings, is that being tapped into who and what we really are and why we are alive is the single most powerful thing we can do to solve our problems and to finally live a life that, is beyond our imagination. And why that's more important now than ever before is that there's a greater and greater activation of this expansive energy on the planet right now. And as this activation is happening, because your vision for your life is not just about you, you are not just an individual separate from the rest, but individual, actually the word means undivided from the whole. You are a branch on the one tree of life, the one tree of humanity. You are a wave on this one ocean. You are whatever analogy you want to use. So there's really just one great idea that's emerging on the planet right now. And your life purpose is a branch of that one great idea. And as this one great idea is seeking to emerge, those that are still resisting the emerging impulse, they're going to feel greater increasing anxiety, stuckness, stagnation, increasing crises and challenges, and the breakdowns of old structures that no longer can survive. And those that are willing to get in alignment with it, to say yes to it, to stop resisting it, to say yes to the yes within them, and are willing to be courageous enough to really become congruent with that, they're not just going to get a boost from their own energy. You're literally going to ride this larger planetary wave that is sweeping across the planet right now, and you're going to find an acceleration of your life. So like a surfer catching the wave, you're going to literally be lifted by that. What's the thing? A rising tide lifts all boats. So there's a rising energetic tide happening. And if you get in alignment with that tide, which is the truth of your own being, it's going to accelerate your progress. Now, important, like I said, it's also going to accelerate crisis. So many people are experiencing an acceleration of their crisis. They're experiencing a rapid manifestation, not only of the positive ideas, but the negative concepts and resistance that they're holding. The manifestation is rapidly increasing. And the law of creative, deliberate creation doesn't know the difference between what you don't want and what you do want. It just knows what you're focused on. So if you're in resistance, then it's going to magnify that. And that's going to happen with repeated, with greater rapidity. But if you're focused on the vision and you're yielding to that, surrendering to that, then that's what's going to be rapidly accelerated. So that's why there is no more more important thing you can do than to get really clear on who you are, why you're alive, and begin to engineer your life to become totally congruent with that essence and that energy and that pattern because of what's going on. Just in general, that's always a good idea. But like I said, because of what's happening right now energetically on the planet. It's more important than ever.
Okay, so you say, and I think this plays in because you were just talking about deliberate creation and all of that, you say that the law of attraction and most manifestation techniques actually make things worse, and I think that probably really plays in here. So can you explain that?
Well, yeah, the problem is that the idea of cause and effect and attraction and all that, it's what's called a linguistic convenience. There's really no such thing in reality with a capital R. There's really no cause and effect, and we know this now from quantum physics. There's just an isness. There's just an omni-activity, a great divine design, whatever you want to call it, that's emerging. But it's the same thing that we talk about the sun rising and setting. The sun doesn't actually ever rise or set. We know that now. We still talk about it that way, and we sometimes get fooled by it, but really the sun is not moving. Well, it's moving in a larger arc, but it's not rising and setting relative to the planet. We're revolving. So the same thing is true with this. It's emerging. It's not being caused. It's not being attracted. And so whenever we are trying to attract something to us, even with the best techniques, the underlying premise is something's missing. Something's wrong. Something's lacking. Something's broken. And so we will have to experience that underlying premise. And that's why most people that use this type of work, they experience an acceleration or an exacerbation of feeling stressed out or anxious or more frustrated because they're magnifying, they're literally manifesting a greater expression of I don't have. Because that's the underlying premise. Or if they manage through sheer will, because they have great willpower, they manifest a bigger paycheck, they often find themselves just broke at a higher income bracket.
Yeah.
And that's because they have changed the appearance, but they haven't changed. It's like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. So, right? So that's why Gandhi said you must become the change or be the change you want to see in the world. So that's the main problem with manifestation techniques as we learn them, or even just typical success strategies, is that we're putting all this energy into making something happen, achieving, attracting, manifesting, but the underlying premise is something's wrong, something's missing, something's lacking, or something's broken.
Interesting.
And so that's really the prayer that we're praying. And like I said, even if we manifest, we manifest a bigger house, but we end up feeling even less at home. Or we manifest a new relationship, and we end up in many of the same arguments, or feeling just as alone eventually after the honeymoon wears off. Or we end up manifesting a new job, and we end up somehow with the same jerky boss, just wearing a different mask. And, or like the one lady I remember, she manifested a new home because she was so afraid of living in California because of earthquakes. So from that fear, she did all this work to manifest a new home somewhere in the South or whatever, Midwest, and her house got taken out by a tornado. So she just ran right back into the same fearful belief system, just in a new location. So does that make sense? So that's the biggest problem. Whereas emergence starts with the premise, which is what all the masters have taught. Jesus said, when you pray believing that you already have, that you may receive. That wasn't a metaphysical trick. He wasn't trying to get you to get all into a frenzy of belief so you can make something happen. He understood that you already do have it. And so he was trying to get you into that energetic frequency that was congruent. It's like I use the analogy of the radio, that right now where you are, your favorite music is already playing, but you can't hear it unless you tune your dial into the station where that music is playing. You tune from KLACK to KRICH, KLAC to KRICH. And when you do that, you didn't make that music happen. You made it welcome. Because the music wasn't playing in your future, and it wasn't playing in the distance. It was playing right where you are, but it was playing at a frequency that you were not tuned into. So the distance between you and your music is not one of time and space. It's a distance of frequency. Likewise, your destiny, your love, peace, joy, beauty, abundance, wisdom, genius, wholeness, harmony, companionship, everything. It's already playing. It's already broadcasting right here, but it's at a frequency that you're not tuned into, that you're not congruent with. And as you tune into it, but you have to know that. You have to start with the premise it's already here. It's just invisible and at a different frequency. Okay, great. I've already got it. It's already here. Now let me tune in. That's also why Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is at hand, but having eyes, you don't see it, and having ears, you can't hear it. He was just saying, metaphysically speaking, it's already here. You're already in it, but you're judging by your appearances, by its senses, when reality is spiritual or invisible or energetic. And you can't see it with the physical senses. You can't see reality with the physical senses. You can only discern it energetically or spiritually, and because it's a frequency. But when you tune into it, it becomes manifest. It becomes visible. And when you start with the premise that you've already got it, that it's already here, it's already broadcasting, that lets go of all the struggle, all the striving, all the projection of putting your goods somewhere in the distance and somewhere in the future. And you begin to relax in the present. You begin to open up. You begin to recognize that I'm literally pregnant with something. And that is, by the way, the real meaning of the word desire. Desire comes from a word that means of the sire or of the father or of the creative impulse, meaning that your desire is not a clue of something that's outside you need to go get. It's a signal of something inside of you trying to get out, that you're literally pregnant with it. It's knocking at the door of your heart saying, I'm here, let me out. And, just as a pregnant woman wouldn't run around trying to attract a baby or make a baby happen because people would think she was crazy, and pretty soon those nice men in white jackets with really good upper body strength would take her away. And she would probably lose her child too. So likewise, when we have this burning desire to be more, have more, do more, we must start with the belief, the premise that we've already got it. That's the guarantee that we've already got it. We're pregnant with it. It's broadcasting. And that desire is the signal coming from my soul, from that soul purpose blueprint, from whatever you want to call it. Now the work is asking, how do I become more congruent with that? How do I yield to it? How do I surrender to it? How do I allow it? Instead of trying to make it happen, how do I make it welcome?
So let me sum this up, and then I'm actually going to ask you to do something with this, because I know you have like a whole soul purpose exercise that you're going to take us through, which I'm so excited to have you do with everyone. So basically what you're saying, this is why you say there's actually nothing wrong with us.
That's right.
Because it's all already here. So really it's the disconnect, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but you're saying it's the disconnect from everything that we already have access to that is really causing our stress and our emotional pain, even our financial lack, relationship issues, all of that. And that's really what's sabotaging our results? Am I hearing you right?
Yeah, it's twofold. It's first of all, the disconnect. So we're not connected to that. And then because we believe we're not connected, we believe we're lacking something or that we're broken or something's wrong. Now that creates a whole nother set of coping and defense mechanisms where we now are striving and struggling to make stuff happen, to achieve, all of which becomes a whole nother layer upon layer of resistance to what's really already here trying to emerge. It's first the disconnect, and then it's all the resistance to what's already here. That then blocks the energy that's trying to emerge in us. And that energy, because it can't freely express, energy is never created or destroyed. This is a law of physics. That energy then must find some way of expressing, so it breaks out in aberrated ways. It gets distorted. It gets fragmented. It ends up, short-circuiting the intelligence of our energetic system and the messages. And so those signals get, it's like we're tuned into the wrong station, or we're like in between stations and we're getting static on the line. And so the energetic system, the mental emotional system, the physical system are getting this static. They're not getting clear messages. And then those unclear messages show up as distorted, static expressions in our field: energy, emotions, body, finances. And all of that outpictures as things being, distorted and broken down because this energy is not getting to freely express. So then we try to then solve that problem by focusing on our relationships and trying to just do better relationship or just do better money or just do better body or just do better this. And again, that's still us trying to get rid of the ice, but staying at 32 degrees. And that's why Einstein said you can't solve a problem at the level of thinking that created it. Mm. So instead, we have to stop that energy of trying to fix anything. And we have to turn our attention back to asking a different question. What is the truth of me? More than I want to fix, change, manipulate, heal, or control anything, I want to wake up to the truth of my being. I want to see who I really am and why I'm alive. I want to know what's really here trying to emerge. More than I want to fix anything, I want to wake up to what is really here and true about me. That begins to shift. We start to let go of the resistance because what you resist persists, what you fight, you fuel, and we start to open up to what's here all along. And it's been trying to emerge, and it's been giving us signs and signals all over the place about what it is, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But we haven't been able to interpret those signals correctly. And so this is the beginning of the process of reinterpreting what is it that's really in me, that's really trying to emerge. I've already got the whole package. I'm already a fully franchised expression of life. The whole thing, like a franchise, it's a turnkey operation. You don't have to do anything. It's just turn the key, open the door, and the whole thing works. That's what a franchise model is. Well, we are a fully franchised model of the universe. It's already been perfected. The divine intelligence has already worked out all the bugs. It's already got the whole design worked out. We just have to turn the key and open the door and step inside and discover what it really is, and then begin to allow it to unfold and emerge in our life. So it's the disconnection, and then it's all the stuff we do on top of that, and we just add resistance upon resistance before we get so far away from who we really are.
Okay, so let's talk about this. And actually, I would love if you can explain and then take us through it, because you're talking about, our soul purpose. And that's such an exciting thing to me. And I know everybody listening, yes, I want to know what my soul purpose is. I want to know what is, quote unquote, trying to emerge from me. So how do we discover that? Because that's a real struggle for a lot of people.
Yeah. And I want people just to keep remembering, keeping foremost in mind that tapping into, uncovering, and living in alignment with your soul purpose is not just about, getting a better job. It's not just about making more money, although that's certainly part of it. That most of the problems you're struggling to solve in all of these different ways, discovering, uncovering, and becoming congruent with your soul purpose will begin to release the energy that will dissolve many of those challenges naturally. So I just want to keep putting that in the right context that people know that's why this is number one. That's why it says without a vision, the people perish. That's how important this is. It's like anything else is putting the cart before the horse. And we can do this, and there's so much more to this concept, but we can go right into a process if you want in terms of how people can begin to uncover what is your soul purpose.
I think that would be fantastic, and I know everybody would absolutely love that.
The first thing you want to just understand is that those burning desires is the first clue. That the burning desire you have, as I said before, it means of the sire. It's an impulse. It's an emerging impulse. The desire is not telling you what's outside of you that you have to go get. It's telling you about something that's inside of you that's trying to get out. Like I said, the pregnant woman, it's like the baby kicking and saying you're pregnant. So you can start with those burning desires that really, they just inspire you. You want them, and you can begin to take comfort. Like a pregnant woman when she feels the kick and she knows for sure she's pregnant, and she just kind of puts her hands over her womb and just kind of sits back and just, she knows she has a baby now. She can relax. So you can begin to embrace your desire the same way. You can just realize, I have that deep desire, and I've had it for so long. The desire to be whole, the desire to have love in my life, the desire to have abundance, to give my gifts to the world. That means I've already got that. That means the whole mechanism and model And everything I need to fulfill that is already within me. And the fact that I'm feeling it so strongly means that I'm really pregnant with it. Take a deep breath. And just put your hand over your womb, all over your heart, and just feel that baby kicking within you. That child of your dream, of your destiny that's seeking to be fully given birth in your life. That means you have it. And I'm not telling you something that is hopeful or wishful thinking. I'm telling you what I know. I'm telling you what I guarantee. This is proof that you've got it. You can take that to the bank. Now, the next stage then is, I want you to do this little exercise. I want you to look at the world and your life and look and find 3 to 5 people that you feel really compelled towards. Really, they move you, they inspire you, they touch you. It can be anyone throughout all of history, anyone in any area. It could be your neighbor, it could be a family member, it could be Jesus, Buddha, Oprah. It could be anyone. Just somebody that really inspires you or moves you. It could be a celebrity, an athlete, an author. Anybody that you just think, oh my God, they're brilliant at something, or they're genius, or I just love their story, or there's just something about them that I admire and respect, or if I could just meet them or know them, or if I could have ever known them. Just find 3 to 5 people that you could feel that way about. And it might be that there's just one part of them that you really, really admire, where maybe the rest of them you don't. Maybe you just really admire Tiger Woods for his athletic abilities and his focus and his discipline, but you're like, I don't really admire his relationship acumen, So it doesn't have to be that you think everything about them is great. There's just something about them that really calls to you or speaks to you. Maybe you even envy them. You're jealous of them. And write those names down and just do this quickly. Don't think too hard about it. Just trust your instincts and write down 3 to 5 names. And now I want you to write by those names, what are the qualities about this person that really speak to you? What is it about them that you admire, respect, appreciate? Is it their power, their discipline, their focus, their humility, their generosity of heart, their selflessness? What is it about them that really speaks to you? What are the qualities? Take a nice deep breath, just continuing to surrender to your willingness. As you now look into those people and saying, what is it about their life story that really speaks to me? Maybe it's like they came from nothing and made something of themselves. They were willing to never take no for an answer. They never let anybody else's opinion stop them. Or they, whatever it is, something about their story that really speaks to you. And you may not have that for every one of them, but there may be 1 or 2 of them that something about their story really speaks to you. Write that down and just write it quickly. Write it in shorthand. It might just be, they believed in themselves no matter what. So that's great. So if you're doing this, that's awesome. Thank you for following along with us. And now look at them and see, anything else about their quality, their story, maybe their certain talents or abilities, and also their message. And maybe it's a literal message, or maybe it's the message they seem to stand for. They just seem to stand for, social justice, or they seem to stand for, loving one another, or they just seem to stand for women's rights, or there's something about them. Maybe it's overt or covert, but it's a message that really resonates with you. Just briefly write that down in a few letters or a few words. Don't worry if you're not having time to write everything down. You can always listen to this in replay and slow it down. Take all the time you need. But right now, really give yourself the chance to really tap into these qualities about these people. And now I want you to look at, what is 1 or 2 things in the world that really break your heart or really anger you? when you see it on the news or you hear about it in the news or you hear it on talk radio, it's a thing that makes you really get sad or angry, and you're like, why isn't somebody doing something about that? Why is that still happening? Why is that not getting fixed? What's wrong with these people? Or whatever. You just find yourself sad or frustrated or angry. And it could be an issue like, civil rights or women's rights or children's rights or animal rights or environment. Or it could be a more universal thing like people not believing in themselves or people giving up on their dreams. Maybe you just find yourself always getting frustrated with people when they just give up too soon. Or you hear them just go, oh, that's not possible. And people that don't believe in the bigger possibilities. And you just kind of want to shake people and say, no, there's more possible here, or don't give up, or stop being a victim. So maybe it's more universal like that. Or people being negative or complaining or just hurting one another unconsciously. So it could be something universal. Just briefly write that down. And again, there's no right answer here. Just trusting your instinct and writing what's coming up. Now take another deep breath and just look at what you've written. This collage of qualities, themes, messages. And understand that what you've just put down is not a profile of those people. What you've just described is a profile of you. It's what I call the soul profile. And why this works is that as you're growing and unfolding, experiences happen and you make decisions. I am that, I'm not that. I am that, I'm not that. And the I am that becomes part of your ego or your identity, and the I'm not that becomes part of your shadow, your unconscious. And we're not talking about the negative shadow side or the dark shadow as much. Right now we're talking about the light shadow. So you might say, I'm not, greedy, and that becomes part of your dark shadow. We're not talking about that today. But you also might say, I'm not talented, I'm not creative, I'm not powerful, I'm not worthy, or whatever. And that becomes part of your light shadow. And again, this may not be happening consciously. It's just as you're growing and maturating, certain things get turned on or don't get turned on, or they get suppressed. And you end up with this final picture where you've got a fixed identity and you've got your shadow. But the shadow, because energy is never destroyed, it's still active and it's projecting out on the screen of your experience as anything that pushes or pulls you. And so all of these people that pull you, that attract you, that you admire, respect, think they're amazing, or even idolize, you think they're your gurus or they're brilliant, whatever, that you're seeing the projection of your own unintegrated potential and power. That's why it resonates. And that is literally your soul speaking to you, reflecting back to you saying, this is who you are. And so now look at that collage again, and as best you can, and this takes a little practice. I can do it right away usually with people because I've done it so many times. But look at those and just replace your name at the top and say, I, Bob, or I, Sue, am. And then begin to read off the qualities and attributes and storyline. I, Bob, am a person who's willing to go for it no matter what anybody thinks. And I'm confident and poised and self-assured. And I help people to really know who they are and to go for their dreams no matter what, from a place of selflessness and love and humility and compassion. And I never give up until I reach my results or whatever. So I'm just imagining some of the qualities I mentioned before, throwing it all together and including the thing in the world that moves you. So just read that to yourself and kind of play with the grammar, and you can have time to refine this afterwards, but just enough to get a sense of I, Bob, I, Sue, I, Julie, I, Karen, whoever, I am this, and kind of read it over until you can kind of imagine that's you and feel what that feels like. And I've done this with many, many people, and they're either in tears when we're done, or like, oh my God, that's what I've always wanted to be, or I've always felt that to be true. And they're also like, oh my God, this is insane. How could I ever do that? So notice that you'll have one or two reactions. You'll feel a sense of resonance, a sense of like memory, like remembrance, like, yes, this is who I am. You might feel a little heartache. Some people start to cry because it's like, oh, this is who I've always wanted to be, but for so long, I've not been true to that part of myself. And so there's kind of a heartache. And for some people, it's like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. And it resonates. And I would love to be that and do that. But how in the world could I ever do that? And that's a normal response. All those are normal. These are all part of what I call the vision blinders or the vision blurs. And most people experience that unconsciously, and they never allow themselves to fully consciously say yes to that vision. Now, one of the little piece is ask yourself, if you haven't already, based on the burning desires that you had at the beginning of this process, and based on that thing in the world that really moves your heart. It's what I call the heartbreak bridge. It's the bridge between who you are and how you're meant to serve in the world and show up in the world. Ask yourself, if I could be this person that I've just written down here, if I could be this person fully and completely, and I could have this impact in this area in the world that really moves me, and I could do it in any way that I wanted, not in the way I think it should be, not in the way people say it has to be done, but I could be it and do it in a way that truly sings my soul, that truly turns me on, that I could be excited about. What would that world look like? What would that life look like? What would that vision look like? Me being this person and making this impact in a way that truly excites me. Even if right now your mind is saying, that's impossible, who do you think you are? How would you ever do that? Just say thank you for sharing and put that aside for right now. And go back to, yeah, but what if? What if I could be this person and I could express in this way and have this impact in a way that truly made me inspired and passionate? Take a deep breath and just allow yourself to surrender to that vision. And just know that to whatever extent you've gotten a glimpse of that, that is the truth about you. And that's the starting point. There's, of course, more work to be done, but now you've got the starting point with your vision, energetically speaking, emotionally speaking, how you feel if you were living that vision, who you would be if you were living that vision, which is the 3 soul pillars of your soul purpose blueprint, is the feeling, the being, and the doing. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about the soul purpose blueprint in a moment, but just know that that vision is true. Now, we don't know exactly what it will look like when it fully manifests, but energetically, essentially, that is the truth about you. And we'll talk more in a few minutes about how to take that to the next step. But just take a moment and just imagine and feel, what if this could be true about my life? What are the implications? What are the possibilities? How amazing would that be? And allow yourself to feel that for a moment, to luxuriate in that. As I just offer up a quantum prayer to seal this process. As you're feeling that energy, knowing that that feeling tone, that energy is real. That is your soul speaking to you. That's how it speaks. That's the language of your soul. As I just drop down into this prayer field and know that because there's only one life here, there's only one mind, one intelligence, one omni-active presence that is all loving and all giving and all knowing. It's called by many names: the quantum field, nirvana, heaven, reality, higher self. It doesn't matter what we call it, as long as we call it forth now as the activity of our consciousness. And in the realization that there's only one, this one infinite life is omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient, meaning there is nothing outside of it or other than it. And it is already whole. It is already perfect. It is already complete, meaning there's nothing to fix, nothing to improve about it. That just as 2 + 2 = 4 has always existed, nobody created that, nobody improved that, and nobody can diminish that. There is a pattern and an equation of life that is perfect, whole, and complete, that cannot be created or diminished, but can only be discovered and expressed. That this is the truth right where each and every one of you listening are right now. Within you and as you is a perfect equation, a divine design, a seed of infinite potential planted in the soil of your soul, a perfect pattern of unlimited wealth, health, wholeness, harmony, companionship, love, wisdom, genius. A genius code, a destiny of greatness. It's within you, as you, and is you. And the word that I'm speaking in this collective agreement is striking that mystic chord of memory within you and stirring that divinity into activity now and creating that inner integrity for this divine idea to emerge like never before. And it shows up as fresh insight, revelation, breakthroughs, new opportunities, new relationship, and compelling right action. It's happening. Take a deep breath and accept that. Something is being stirred. Your temperature is being risen now. Your frequency is being tuned into that station. K-R-I-C-H, K-joy, instead of killjoy. It's being tuned in to that station where your song is already playing. It's raising that temperature so that all of that ice is melting away. All that has frozen you and kept you stuck in that old paradigm, in that limited perspective, it's dissolving now. It's melting away. And that which you really are and who you're really meant to be and the gifts you're meant to deliver, it's unfolding and emerging now with ease and with grace and with dignity. I'm so grateful for this awareness that we're all joining in now, and in this collective agreement, it's being accelerated. A quantum leap is happening. And miracles are breaking out now. Instant demonstrations of truth and reality. Accept it. And allow for a sense of gratitude. Because gratitude is already the sign that you've received the gift. And I just give thanks for this. I'm so grateful to be aware of this truth. We are tuned in now to that station and hearing a whole new tune. And so it is. Amen.
Wow. First of all, the exercise, the soul purpose, when you said those qualities that you just wrote down aren't of someone else, they're of you. I literally, my body got flooded. I just had chills through my entire body because it's so powerful. I just got them again in saying that. And then for you to take us through that quantum prayer, I mean, it truly did. I felt it, and I know everybody else felt it. It instantly lifted the energy. It's like it took us right away to the next level, and that's so exciting. I mean, I can feel how powerful all of this is and how congruent it is. You know, it just feels right, that inner sense of knowing that you were talking about, and I can see how essential this is into helping us emerge, as you put it, and I love that way of looking at it. Emerge as we truly are, the magnificence that we truly are. And I just think it's so exciting. Do you have any stories you can share with us of people who have worked with this and have worked with what the soul purpose and all of that and have experienced some significant transformations that you could share with us?
Well, it's funny. I had a feeling you were going to ask me that, and I just was thinking about it a moment ago and seeing so many examples in my head. I was trying to like grab one because I'm getting so many testimonials of people that are going from, having no idea of what they've been meant to do for years and years, and for the first time in their life being so on fire with their purpose, and then finding as opportunities are showing up. I mean, I've talked about some of these testimonials before, but because there's so many new ones coming in now, I'm trying to remember them on the spot. But because I literally was just on the phone with several people today who were one after the other talking about, like, all of a sudden this money came in, and all of a sudden I got invited to go do this show, or all of a sudden I got this invitation to do this trick that I've been in. My whole life just opened up, or all of a sudden, I just met somebody, or, like there's all these examples in my head that I'm trying to pinpoint to tell you, or just on my coaching calls, sometimes in a matter of minutes, almost every week on the call, one or two people has an instant breakthrough when we just practice this principle of what I just walked you through, and just right there in the minute, they have a lifelong trauma that just gets integrated, or they go from literally being clueless of what their purpose to being, like I said, in tears of suddenly knowing who they are on a deeper level. And some people doing this work, I know one person did one of these processes, the radiation meditation, and right in the middle of doing it, she had a forgiveness take place, a healing, and the phone rang, and she answered it, came out of the meditation to answer it, and it was the person she had just had a healing with in her meditation.
Wow.
And they were calling her to say, I don't know why I felt compelled to call you, but something just told me I needed to call you. And their whole relationship was healed. So there's instant things like that. One person who had their kidney that was failing, and they began doing this work. And in about 30 days, they emailed me and said, their kidney is no longer failing. It's working again. So,
wow.
People that have, money has showed up, all kinds of things. One guy who was on the verge of bankruptcy and now has, his only problem now is how to just keep up with all the business that he has coming in. He got congruent with who he really was. And this is not a get rich quick concept. If anybody tells you it is, they're lying and you should run quickly. But it's real. It's principle. It's not personal. It's principle. So it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter what you've been through. It doesn't matter what you think about yourself. It's like when you plant a seed in the ground and you cultivate the soil according to principle. It doesn't matter if you feel worthy of that seed growing into something. The soil can't look at you and go, I'd really love to grow that seed, but you don't have enough self-confidence. Or, I'd really love to grow that seed, but you kind of had a bad childhood. No, it doesn't work. If you plant the seed, also if that seed's been sitting in your pocket for years and you suddenly plant it, the soil can't go, sorry, you missed your window, pal. If you would have come and planted with all the other seeds, then maybe. But no, it's not personal. It's principle. It's law. And so I find this work with people all over the world, people of all ages, of whatever conditions they're struggling through or what they've been through. And in many cases, the more they're struggling, sometimes the riper they are for a quick shift in their life. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Absolutely. And it makes, this is why I get so excited is because, the more you help and the more I help by bringing you to people get into that soul purpose and have them starting to emerge. First of all, anybody who's doing that, their life benefits, but then that raises the vibration of the universe. Everything is benefit. So that's why I get so, I'm sure you can hear it in my voice. I get so jazzed about it. And the cool thing about it to me is you already shared so much with us just in going through that soul purpose exercise. That was immense. And so I so appreciate that. And then you put together a special offer because I know there's so much more to this. This is, as you said, that's just the beginning of the journey, obviously a very valuable beginning to the journey. Okay, everyone, I highly encourage you, go and follow along. Click on the special offer button that's on this webpage and we will take you right there. And Derrick, go ahead and talk us through.
Absolutely. So what I did here is I put together a package that some of my colleagues were like, you're crazy. You can't put all of that in there. People aren't going to believe it. So just want to put that in advance because I really did put a lot in here. And the reason is I understand the ego thresholds, which I talk about a lot. And I wanted to not leave anybody's ego with any reason not to transform their life. And so I included everything in here that they would possibly need to do that, looking at my own journey and working with clients for 2 decades. And the first thing that's here is, of course, the Soul Purpose Blueprint program. And what it is a very in-depth, step-by-step program that walks you through all these stages of getting very clear on your Soul Purpose Blueprint, clearing out what's in the way of it, and creating the plan to actually achieve it in a nutshell or in an acorn shell. But what's unique about the Soul Purpose Blueprint, unlike any one that I've ever seen around purpose, is if people could go down to, obviously we tap into the vision and all of that, but if they go down to the Soul Purpose Archetypal Patterns, session 6, this session and the 2 sessions after are something very, very unique. What I discovered in working with people is that we have all these energies that are trying to emerge in us. there might be the artistic energy, and there might be the creator energy or the builder energy. And you might be, a scientist and have sort of the builder energy of building theories or theorems or whatever, and also have an artistic energy. And so you're like thinking you need to like paint on the weekends, or maybe you have the healer energy and also the teacher energy. And so you are, doing Reiki on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and trying to coach on whatever on other days. And I see this so often where people are feeling the impulse, the emerging impulse of these different archetypal energies that are specific to your soul purpose archetypal patterns. And they don't quite understand that. And so their energy is very scattered, and it's all over the place, and they're trying to do all these different things. And as opposed to understanding what is that core archetypal pattern that is truly your core pattern, which I show you how to identify in this part of the program. And then what are the supporting archetypal patterns that are trying to activate themselves, but are meant to activate and express within that core. So for example, you might have, and I see this happen a lot, but you might be the scientist who is also, an artist. And when you ask, well, what would it look like to activate the artist archetype in the midst of my science? And suddenly you get an Einstein who was poetic and who used thought experiments and his visions of traveling on light beams and talking about poetry. And why is Einstein? One of the reasons is that he allowed the fullness of him to activate instead of trying to do things separately. Or you might be an activist and an artist. And instead of doing your art on the weekends and trying to be an activist during the week, you might say, well, what would it look like to let the activist archetype fully express through my art? And then you end up being like, I think it's Frank Whalen, the guy that travels the world creating these beautiful works of art of ocean and whales, and is a brilliant artist activist. Or you might be an architect and an artist and an activist, and you're a Frank Lloyd Wright, who was a person who was an architect, but allowed the activation of the activist and the artist in him. So he built architecture that was not only works of art, but were also in harmony with Earth. So and people doing this section alone, I've gotten all these emails of people just having aha after aha about, oh my God, suddenly when I put these pieces together, it was like they got such clarity, and the uniqueness of your vision suddenly snaps into place. You suddenly discover your unique articulation of your vision, because it's like a kaleidoscope. Everything's in there. And, you might have orange in the center, and then you turn it to the right a little bit and it shifts. And now you see all the colors again in a whole new configuration. And maybe there's blue in the center now and orange on the outside. And you are a kaleidoscopic expression of all of these energies. And some of them are at the center of you, and some of them are kind of circling that, and then wider and wider circles. And these are these archetypal energies. And when you know what that is and you get clear, it's like all of that energy that's been scattered or diluted or diffused or blocked. That's the other thing. People will come to me and they'll be like, they're working this particular job, and they're like, but I also have this other impulse and all these other impulses. I don't know what to do with it. And they're blocking it. They're not allowing the artist to express. They're not allowing the healer to express because they're an artist. What's the healer have to do with that? Or whatever. And they're stagnant until they allow that energy to fully express. And all of a sudden, their artwork just takes off. And they suddenly get offers and they start selling paintings. I see this happen. So this is a very powerful stage. I just wanted to share that with you, that for many people that are stuck, stagnant, confused, this starts to really clear things up. Then we move to the next stage, which is the vision blinders. And in working with people for 2 decades, I discovered that no matter what they do, for some people, they still get blocked and they can't see their vision clearly. Or when they see it, they can't commit to it fully. And it's broken down into, I discovered over 2 decades, 8 core reasons why we're not able to see the vision clearly or commit to it fully. That's what I call the vision blinders or the vision blurs. And you can see them here. There's the escape fantasy, the parental fantasy, the premature practicality, delusions of grandeur, the all or nothing syndrome, the need to know syndrome, the values conflict. That's a huge one, where you value two things like success and security, or success and relationship. But in your mind, they're at odds with each other. They're in conflict because you have an experience that made you believe that if you got successful, you would lose connection to your loved ones. Or if you got successful, you would lose your privacy. And so those values are at conflict with each other, and it's blocking your ability to see your vision fully. That's a huge one. Or there's the shadow block. And that's where we talked a little bit about this before. Those shadows that you have repressed contain a great part of your vision, but because they're repressed and they're not integrated, you're not able to clearly see the vision and to fully commit to it. So I go through all of those pieces in this and help you one by one clear those blocks. This is huge. This has made all the difference for people in terms of finally getting unstuck and getting free, even if they've done all the other stuff. So all of that is included in the Soul Purpose Blueprint. It's an in-depth, I think it's 7 or 8 hours of in-depth, step-by-step training to walk you through wherever you are, to get clear, to know who you are, to remove the blocks, to really get that blueprint clear, and then to create the plan that allows you to execute it. But in addition to that, Kristen, I've also added in here a whole series of bonuses that are normally reserved for my private $1,000 a month clients, actually $1,500 a month now. So these are all in here for free. I've included that. And then I've also included in here because I know a lot of people will go through this and they hit these thresholds and they don't know what to do, or they get frustrated, or they just end up putting it on the shelf and don't get back to it. And I don't want this to be just more shelf help. I want this to be real, authentic self-help, so that we don't want to make your shelf look any nicer, whether it's your virtual shelf or your literal shelf. We want this to become really applied and get real results. And I know it works if you work it. So I'm including a free month of private group coaching with me personally. So you can work with me 2 to 3 calls during that month for 1 to 2 hours each. Speak up, ask questions, be one of the people that gets one of these instant breakthroughs. Everybody that wants to gets a chance to raise their hand and work with me. So you can work with me on every single call and really get the help you need so that you can make this not shelf help, but real self-help. And that's normally just $200 if you called up tomorrow just to get that program. That it would just cost you that much. So instead, you get it here for free. And by the way, actually not for free, it's 1 penny, because our system is set up so you can't actually do it for free. You have to charge something. So it's 1 penny to work with me for a month in that private group coaching. And that way you get the support you really need to get the results. And then, because we've talked about the Law of Emergence, I wanted to include my original Law of Emergence program. It's not the Emergineering, but it's the original Law of Emergence program that started this all, a bestseller around the world. And when I originally did it live, it was $597. I'm including the whole program here over 10 hours for free. The whole program. So you'll have the Law of Emergence program as a foundation for free. You'll have the group coaching with me personally for free. And then for those that really, and then you'll have all the private bonuses that come with my private clients for free. So you can see whatever you need, it's here. So all of that is included in here. And yeah, so now you can see why some of my colleagues were like, "You're crazy. You can't put all of that in there. They're going to think there's some catch. It's not real." And it's not filler. I know there's a lot of these kind of deals. I want people to really know that all of these are actual programs and things that are really what I say they are. None of this is filler or, just a bunch of stuff I'm just throwing in there. This is real programs that the Soul Purpose one will be going on sale privately for at least 2 to 3 times what it's normally offered. So these are all real, and it's all a real special offer for this program.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, it's so in alignment with who you are as a person, though, so I'm not at all surprised that it is this much stuff, and truly it is all real, massive programs, by the way, everybody. So this is, as Derrick Derrick said, it's not filler at all. This is really, really amazing.
It's like a master's course in emergence and soul purpose. And one thing I want to just add one thing, because I've been there and I know the resistance that comes up when we feel that inner yes. And we're like, yeah, but what if it's not for me? What if it doesn't work? Oh, what if I can't afford it? So I want to be really clear. These are all threshold responses. I deal with them every day with clients. If you feel that inner yes, I want to really encourage you to say yes to it. Get in the program, get in the group coaching. Just the frequency of these audios that have been encoded in these audios, just like that quantum prayer, will begin to work on you. Getting into the group coaching and being in that frequency will begin to work on you and heal you. And you can do the group. You can speak to me on the group calls. You can get breakthroughs and healings and do all the work and do all of that. And after 30 days, if for whatever reason you still don't think it's 10 times worth the value, or for whatever reason, you can have a complete refund. And I'm saying that, I know most people offer the refund, but I want to be very clear that you get to get into the group program and actually work with me and actually get those breakthroughs with me on the call and still get your money back if you don't want to stay in it. So don't rob yourself of the gift of all of that free stuff and of the opportunity to get into that energy and to really have a chance to move your life to the next level, because there's literally no risk.
And I want to point out, it really is so extraordinary that people actually get to work with you. And I know that you make sure you talk to everybody. And so it's not like, I hope I get to talk to them. You truly get access to you. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. The group calls were normally supposed to be like an hour. And sometimes I'll be on the call for 3 hours so that I can get to everybody.
Yeah,
so,
which is amazing.
I'm committed to people getting the breakthrough that they've really signed up for. That's the bottom line.
I think that. Now, let me ask you this. When people start working with this, obviously we've explored some of the amazing things that can happen over time, or even quickly for some people. But what are some of the things that pretty much everybody that starts working with this can start to expect to experience, right away? Is there a certain feeling? Is there a certain, essence of something that is going to happen for them pretty quickly?
Well, what I can tell you is the experience I've had people that's happened to people many times is it's like they've been struggling to get clarity all up for years in some cases, and the clarity is almost instantaneous. So, and by the way, if you don't get it instantaneously with the program, you just get on the group coaching call, you work with me, and I guarantee you will not walk away from that call the same person. And so the people are finding that, like I said, I get emails about, oh my God, I never saw it this way. Suddenly it all makes sense. I didn't realize that this part over here that I've been keeping outside of my life purpose was actually a part of it. And suddenly now, like I was saying before, suddenly my art is selling and things are happening. It's like all this energy that's been locked up gets unleashed. And people are inspired. People are impassioned. There's a whole new energy. I'll talk to them before they really start working in some cases, and then they'll get on the call, and they've been working it for a month or so, and it's not the same person. It's like they've come alive again in their life, and there's just this whole new level of excitement for their life. And then they're like, just things are happening. They're like, it seems like a miracle to them. The synchronicity, suddenly, oh gosh, what was it? There was one just recently, I'm drawing a blank on it now, where just like all these things were suddenly happening. Like they got an offer over here, or this person suddenly called them, or this showed up, or they suddenly got money. So there's been so many of them, and I'm not exaggerating that. And what's happening, it's not magical at all. What's happening is that, as I said in the very beginning of the call, all of that energy that you've been praying and affirming and wanting and yearning and desiring, every time you've done that, you've activated that energy within you. And the minute you start to get congruent, it's kind of like another analogy that just came to my mind. If you've ever had a hose and you turn the hose on, but it's like crimped in one area, and so like nothing's coming out the other end, or it's just dribbling, and suddenly you straighten out the hose, what happens? Yeah. It's like the water
flying through.
Right. So it's like all that energy that's been repressed suddenly comes out. It gets to find free expression. And so healings happen and insight and inspiration happens and their emotions get cleared up and opportunities manifest. All of that is a signal that what's been trying to emerge, suddenly the cap gets taken off and it just gets to emerge. It was there all along. It was trying to emerge. Now it's suddenly freed up to do so. So that's one of the initial experiences that people have.
Well, that's amazing. And that alone, I'm like, that's perfect. You're amazing and incredible. And I just love talking with you and I love sharing you with everyone. Is there, we've kept you long and I appreciate you doing that and hanging out with us. And of course, I know that that's how you are.
That's how I roll. That's how I roll.
Yeah, that's how you roll. And I love that. Do you have any final words you want to share with us before we head off today?
Yeah. The one thing for all you to take away and just take a deep breath with me and just settle back into whatever good feelings or insight or ahas you tapped into during this call. And just feel that energy of connectedness or aliveness or possibility to whatever extent, even if it's just a glimmer. And what I want you to know is that little glimmer, that is an infinite light, an infinite power. And it just means that your perception of it right now is narrow. But if you can have even a glimmer of it, that's because the fullness of it is in you. It's like the iceberg. It's just a little tip, but underneath that is everything you could ever need, want, hope for, or desire to create the life of your dreams, the destiny that you were born for. And if you walk away with nothing else, I want you to walk away with a more deeper relationship with that part of you and a knowingness to contemplate that everything you could need is already within you, that you're already the answer you're seeking. You're already the solution you've been struggling for. You're already the salvation you've been waiting for somebody else to come, and give you. You're it. You have it. And contemplate that over the next several days and just ask, if that's true, what are the implications of that in my life now? If that's true, what are the implications? And pray, life, spirit, God, whatever your concept is, I'm ready and willing to discover this truth about me more than ever before. If you just walk away with just that and you sincerely pray and contemplate that truth of your being, and you do that consistently, your life will never be the same. So my hope and my prayer is that you walk away with that and you hold that and you never let that go, and your life will change.
That was absolutely beautiful and so energy raising. So thank you for that. That's the perfect way to take us out. I so appreciate you and everything you do and everything you're sharing, and everybody listening. I appreciate all of you. I just think you're absolutely magnificent. It is a joy for me to get to do this. Derrick, thank you so much. I can't wait till the next time. And thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye. 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 Bye.